And let's go to last night in Minneapolis, where there was so much on the line in Game 6, Allen, of this second-round series. Wolves trying to keep their season alive. Denver would come out hot early, and then the Wolves would just take the game over completely. Anthony Edwards getting it started.
Yeah, he was plus 43 in this game, but he also gave credit to the return of Mike Conley, which freed him up defensively in this game.
Conley played great. Karl Anthony Towns played very well. You see here the Wolves putting together a 9-0 run to start taking control of the game, and then it continues. Here we go, Naz Reid, and then we got Jaden McDaniels, and the Wolves are up by 15 points.
18 fast break points. Look who was running a lot harder in this game. Who was the desperate team? It was Minnesota, who hadn't won a home game yet in this series.
And now they have. Edwards burying a 3. Wolves have a 19-point lead at halftime. Would the Nuggets come back in the second half? That's the question. The answer, definitively no. Here we go on the defensive end. Anthony, watch this move. Oh, right there. Oh, my goodness. Anthony Edwards with the nasty fake and the flush, and the Wolves are up by 24 points, and it would continue. The lead would go as many as 50. Now, here was the only bad moment for Anthony Edwards and the Wolves. Down he goes. Please don't let him be hurt.
Good thing to be 22 years old and be able to recover, and that was certainly a moment where you held your breath, because he has been so spectacular. He has been breathtaking. But that moment certainly was one where the Timberwolves and their fans held their breath.
The good news, he would not miss a moment of game action. He seemed fine, knocks down a 3 here. He would score 27. Again, the Wolves would win by 45 points. And Anthony Edwards would let the fans know what's coming up. It's Sunday in Denver. It'll be Game 7. So, to the MVP, what exactly happened here?
They beat our ass. They were better than us in every segment of the game. And we need to accept it, take it, and just try to be better next time.
Did you really tell the locker room staffer in Denver you were going to be back for
Hell
Game
yeah. They know. I was in there. Yeah, I told them. I said, I'll see y'all for Game 7. Yeah.
And they will, and that will be coming up on Sunday. Legler, I'm trying to make sense of these NBA playoffs, and I just can't. If you had told me Minnesota was going to win this game, you would not have surprised me. I actually picked them. If you had told me they were going to be winning by 50 points in the second half, I would not have taken that bet. How do you explain it?
Impossible to explain, and nobody here can explain this, right? Again, what you just said, I would agree with. No one is shocked that Minnesota won the game. They hadn't won a home game yet in this series. They're the #1 defensive team in the league. They've got a young superstar player, so you would think, yeah, they can get a game at home, but you would have thought the way Denver operated offensively in the last 3 games, Minnesota would have had to win this game late in a one-possession game where they made the plays and Denver didn't, and no one would have been surprised by that, getting it back to Denver for a Game 7. Instead, we got what we saw last night, and it was incredible to me, the reversal, because I've said repeatedly, Greeny, I don't recall a bigger 180-degree turn than I saw from Game 2 in this series when Minnesota dominated them like this to Games 3, 4, and 5. I just don't recall a team looking that inept offensively, flipping it around the way Denver did. And I'll say the same thing about this reversal. What I just saw in 3, 4, and 5 is a 180-degree turn now in Game 6. So nobody could say they honestly expected Minnesota to put it on them to that extent last night. At the end of the day, we're where I thought they would be at the beginning of the series, but not in this manner, which is a Game 7 in Denver. That's what I picked before the series started, and here we are, but I never expected this kind of ride to get there.
Yeah, they've taken the road less traveled to get exactly where we expected them to be, which is Game 7 between these two bizarrely evenly matched teams, which it'll be Sunday. It'll either be in the afternoon or the night on Sunday for Game 7, depending upon what happens with Knicks-Pacers tonight. So, Monica, because of the sort of our time got compressed a little bit from what we were expecting due to the events down south, let's go directly to Game 7 in a series that has been impossible to predict. What do you expect? Who has the advantage going into that game? Denver's at home. Minnesota's riding this hot night. Who do you give the edge to?
Greeny, advantage, Momentum, Uncle Mo, as it is affectionately called, is sitting courtside and watching, eating popcorn. I don't know who has the advantage. Like, you could argue that perhaps the Nuggets have a slight advantage because they're going home, but literally based on what we've seen in this series, if you told me that Anthony Edwards certified himself that the conversation of us comparing him to Michael Jordan is appropriate by coming in and leading his team into a victory, taking it away from the defending champs, I'd buy it. If you told me that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray were like, nah, let's remind you who we are, I totally buy that too. And so for me, I legitimately do not know who has the advantage in this one. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are growing right in front of our eyes, and they are quite all right being the villains if they need to be. And then we're really seeing how do the Nuggets respond when they've been tested. Yes, they responded after the first 2 games, but the big response is looming on Sunday.
Han, I always love people who are in here who start out as sports writers because in your notes this morning, I thought you perfectly defined what is at stake on both sides for Jokic and for Edwards on Sunday in Game 7.
Absolutely legacy game, Brini, and that's exactly what you're setting up for. And that's what Anthony Edwards earned himself with this Game 6 win. And I love that Anthony Edwards gave credit to teammates. Mike Conley coming back, that helped me. Talking about in the locker room, he talked about Karl-Anthony Towns, and he talked about the impact that he had because they made a great defensive switch. And they did what the Lakers did. Instead of Gobert guarding Jokic, he had Gobert off him, and Karl-Anthony Towns was guarding him. So all those things that Anthony Edwards has done shows as a young guy, he's a leader. Game 7 on the road. You talk about don't want to make comparisons to Michael Jordan. Sorry, you win that game. That comparison continues. But for Jokic, another legacy game. We talked about it going after being down 0-2, going into Minnesota. He's got to play. He's got to show up. He did. But there's an interesting stat that I saw on Basketball Reference that blew my mind. This is now the 15th time a current MVP will play in a Game 7. The previous 14 times, the MVP lost 8 of those 14. So history doesn't suggest that it's going to go well for Jokic.
And he appeared to injure his elbow and was favoring it and hurt it. And whether that was the reason or not, he wound up shooting 4 of 18 last night, 2 of 7 from 3. Here's the play. You're going to see him coming across, and there runs right into Gobert. So that obviously is a huge factor in this.
He was concerned after the game. Doesn't sure how he was going to feel for Game 7. That's huge.
That's exactly right. He said afterwards, hopefully they'll get me to a place where I'm right. And when you first saw this here, you thought, oh, my goodness, he's not going to play. He did play the rest of the night, but he clearly wasn't himself. That's a huge factor. Legs, who do you expect to win this unpredictable battle in Game 7 Sunday?
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what Monica said, and Alan that's a great number with the Game 7s by an MVP, and they've lost 8 of those. I'm curious, I don't know the data, how many of those were at home, because I think we know historically what Game 7s look like typically. The vast majority of those games are won by the home team, and in this situation, I know what Minnesota has done to them in 2 games in this series, but I'm going to bank on Nikola Jokic. At the end of the day, who do you trust the most in this situation like this? I'm going to go with Nikola Jokic, and I'm going to go with home court advantage. But, this is a legacy game, and this also could be the inside track to winning an NBA championship. Who wins this game?